Everyone thinks the richest industrialists earned their wealth through innovation alone. They are wrong. In the 1870s and 1880, a handful of men controlled the arteries of American commerce. And they didn't do it by accident. They did it by systematically eliminating competition. The machinery that made them wealthy wasn't just factories or railroads, it was the ability to own the entire supply chain and control what competitors could access. That's the real story of how fortunes ballooned to sizes the world had never seen. Exhibit 1: Andrew Carnegie's steel mills. By 1900, Carnegie controlled roughly 25% of all American steel production. But here's what mattered: he didn't just make steel cheaper. He bought up iron ore mines, coal fields, and shipping lines. When a competitor tried to enter the market, they couldn't source raw materials at competitive prices. Carnegie had already locked them up. Vertical integration wasn't a business school term yet. It was ruthless market engineering. Exhibit 2: John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil. At its peak, Standard Oil controlled roughly 90% of American oil refining. 90%. Rockefeller achieved this partly through superior efficiency. His refineries were genuinely well run, but also through aggressive acquisition and undercutting. When independent refiners wouldn't sell, Standard Oil sometimes undercut them so severely that they had no choice but to fold or capitulate. Exhibit 3: Railroad barons like Cornelius, Vanderbilt, and Jay Gould. They didn't just run trains, they owned the tracks, the terminals, and the telegraph lines that communicated schedules and pricing. A farmer shipping grain had one choice: pay their rates. There was no alternative. The cost of grain shipment wasn't determined by market competition. It was determined by whoever owned the rails. So here's what made these fortunes possible: not just hard work or innovation, but the absence of regulation. There were no antitrust laws until 1890. Even then, enforcement was weak. A man could legally buy out his competitors, lock up essential resources, and price goods however he wished. That structural advantage, the ability to eliminate choice, that's what turned millions into hundreds of millions. By 1900, 5% of the population held roughly 37% of the nation's wealth. Not because markets were perfectly efficient, but because market power itself, the ability to control supply and eliminate alternatives, was completely legal and completely unregulated. The price tag you paid for steel, oil, or rail transport wasn't set by open competition. It was set by whoever owned the monopoly. So that's why those fortunes cost what they did, not because the market rewarded the best, but because the market had no rules. Once antitrust enforcement eventually tightened, the game changed. But for 3 decades, the Gilded Age proved something uncomfortable. Wealth accumulation at scale depends less on merit than on the legal permission to eliminate choice. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next financial bubble we unravel. There's a new one every week. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.